Hey everyone, Nick here. I'm the lead BD for DapDap. We're building a next-gen consumer app focused on Ethereum L2s and EVMs. Essentially, we integrate around 300 different dApps and deployed over 300 different front-end components for dApps across 17 different chains. So users can come into one place to navigate all of their favorite applications across these different chains. So swap, lend, borrow, bridge, stake in one place with a single sign-in. So I want to open it up with a question of course, who uses email? Everyone's hands should be going up because everyone uses email on a daily basis. But I think something to consider is like, have you ever thought about how email works? Basically, email runs on 3 core protocols, which is SMTP, POP, and IMAP. And the reason why I'm saying this is because I think it's really fundamental to understand that the back-end technology that could be powering a product is really quite different and does not necessarily need to be known from a user and the user's perspective. And so driving this home is front ends and smart contracts are 2 different things. Now let's talk about the current state of the market. I think there's 3 core pillars that have led to a fragmented landscape. Number 1 being infrastructure bloat. In today's market, I think we've seen, previous cycles lead on to different innovations, but in this cycle specifically, there are a lot of L2s and there are a lot of infrastructure-related products that are being built. And I think ultimately, the reason for this is, there's better providers such as RAS, such as Caldera and Conduit that have allowed people to build roll-ups, right? But more importantly, from a VC or from a company's perspective, funding a new L2 is quite profitable, and comparing a new L2 to another L2 allows them to raise at high FTVs and high valuations. And so from a VC perspective, basically funding infra-related dApps are oftentimes the most profitable, and so this is why we get a lot of infrastructure in the space. Of course, amongst other reasons, but I think that's really quite a core component to it. B, we also have quite a bad user experience, right? Ultimately, there's a number of steps that a user has to take to complete action steps from A to B. If I want to go and explore a chain, I first have to go and install a web wallet. It could be a mobile wallet, but primarily a web wallet, right? And then you then have to go and understand which network do I want to go and explore a dApp on and what dApps do I want to go and use. And ultimately, this boils down to a limited user attention aspect where it's oftentimes very difficult to navigate different dApps if you don't have already a tech background or understand the space to a certain degree, right? So building on this, on the infrastructure side of things, there's this fat protocol thesis, which builds on the fact that it's most profitable for VCs to fund infrastructure projects. It makes the most money for them, it makes the most sense, because typically most value is accrued on the infrastructure level. Now, Ebola means Ethereum bags over logical affliction. This means that, again, VCs, such as larger ones, tier 1 specifically, like Dragonfly, have to deploy all of their capital raised in 2 or 3 years to maintain management fees, but also be able to re-raise again so that they can get paid more. Otherwise, their LPs pull their money. And so you have this problem where if funds raise too much money, they then have to deploy all of that within a period of time, or they basically get pulled, and that fund may lose half of its deployable capital. And then finally, of course, we have this fragmented landscape, which I was touching on with a lot of roll-ups being built in this current stage, where actually till date we have about 71 live L2s on L2 beats, and probably by the end of the year we'll probably have around 100. Now, I'm not entirely against roll-ups. Frankly, I mean, we are building towards an Ethereum roll-up-centric future. This is great, but I still think there's a lot of competition to be had within these current L2s and also for the L2s and app chains that are coming out. There needs to be real reasons for why different app chains and different roll-ups are being built for specific needs and cases, and I think we're in a process of R&D and discovery where we don't really know what's the right fit for the specific product, right? And so, again, building on this, interoperability is really bad, and driving home this bad and complicated user experience. It takes too many steps to use a blockchain, and really there aren't as many consumer apps. Frankly, there's more DeFi protocols that have the exact same front end than there are unique SocialFi protocols or gaming protocols or other verticals that are touching on this consumer app vertical than consumer apps to begin with. So, frankly, we need more applications that are actually giving tangible value to a user. And these could be very simple. It could be ton-related apps, right? You have a lot of users now using ton because it's super easy to go and be able to farm certain points or gems within this game, and it makes it really easy for them to use because ton is the distribution channel, and a user can just go within ton to access whatever application it may be, right? And so the current state of the market is, again, we have about 4,000 to 5,000 applications that leverage largely the same smart contract, whether it's a Uniswap-based smart contract, whether it's a compound-based smart contract, or something else. And a lot of these are forks of these core protocols. And so you get a lot of redundancy in protocols on different chains because they're essentially just forks of Aave and Compound, right? Of course, there are other ones not outliers, but there are other smart contracts and other dApps. But for the most part, there's about probably 1,000 to 1,500 forks of Aave and Compound, right? And then boiling it down further, we have so many L2s, and then there's going to be more L3s, and there's too many dApps, and so it's just very difficult for someone who only has 10 minutes a day to come in and be like, okay, this is what I'm going to do in the space, and this is how I'm going to use a lending market because I know how to use it. And oftentimes they don't, so it's really difficult to then go and be able to understand how to supply or borrow and use financial assets on these different chains and have exposure to all these different dApps. So it's really difficult to boil down which dApp should I use. So ultimately, what I want to drive home is if we don't make infrastructure invisible, we probably won't ever reach mainstream in the same way email is used. You don't need to know about the infrastructure behind email, you just use it. So you just need to be able to use a dApp to complete the step processes from A to B, depending on what you want to do without needing to know how the smart contract is working on the back end or whatever infra it may be. Now, again, how, right? Of course, there's many, I guess, points to this, but I think largely this notion of chain abstraction is something that is becoming more and more prevalent in our landscape. I think account, gas, and bridge are the three main things that are really going to improve a user's experience and simplify on-chain navigation. Again, the notion of not being able to see the blockchain, but being able to use the blockchain is what the end goal that we want to reach. And then again, shortening the amount of steps that a user has to take when navigating a Web3 app. I think if you look at it from even from an e-commerce perspective, there are e-commerce brands and companies that can move around the buttons that a user has to click to sell a product. They can remove pages from a website for a user to complete certain actions to make it more easier for them to sell their products. So in the same vein, I think builders that are oftentimes too focused on the infra or the tech that they're actually building forget about making it easier for a user to actually complete the actions they want to complete. And oftentimes you go to a lending protocol and you see all these different pools and all these different APRs, but for someone coming in that's new, it's going to be like, well, frankly, I don't understand some of the assets that are listed in these pools or what these APRs mean if they're not financially literate, right? So front ends are not the same as smart contracts. And so this is the whole point where you can build better products and leverage existing smart contracts without having to tell people about the smart contracts. Just build a better product and then basically you integrate existing smart contracts such as Uni V2 pools and then have that be the DEX function for whatever build or whatever game you want to power. So in today's market, I think there are a number of consumer apps, but compared to the amount of DeFi apps, this is crazy small. We have Fantasy Tops and Parallel, TCG on more of the gaming side, but even looking at it across the board, you have Sweatcoin and the Sweat ecosystem for Walk to Earn. You have Pump.Fun and Friendtech on this bottom left-hand side, and then you have Farcaster and Audius on the bottom right-hand side. There's 10 applications that are really on this consumer-facing side where they're actually allowing users to do something slightly different than DeFi, which is absurd, I think, in my opinion. And so ultimately, we need more people to be building proper consumer apps that can be used, right? And so this introduces DapDap, right? And so we're simplifying this entry point into Ethereum L2s and their apps. We understand that there are so many applications, and so what we want to do is basically make it easier for you guys to navigate those applications, because only more are going to be built, and we need a better process for allowing users to discover and access these apps. So basically, within DapDap, you can come into one website, sign in with one wallet, and access about 200 apps to begin with. You can swap, lend, borrow bridge, stake LP, etc. in this one UX and one UI, making it super easy for you to do your DeFi actions instead of opening up 10 different websites. You just come to one place. And all we're doing is we're building out the front-end components that are all decentralized and open sourced, but you're interacting with those dApps' smart contracts. You're using Uniswap smart contract, you're using Zero Lens smart contract, you're using Compound smart contract. All we're doing is building an additional front end for them, and that drives home the fact that front ends and smart contracts are two different things. So in today's market for DapDap, we have about 200 dApps, and you can pretty much use most of the main applications that you may already be using across the main chains that you may be exploring right here, right now, on your laptop. And I think that's really important because there really isn't another product like DapDap out there. And so we're building for product market need, not necessarily just fit. And I think over the last 6 months, monthly metrics and performance so far has been outstanding. So we have about 140K registered users, and volume on a monthly basis has really only been increasing. Till about August, we hit about 50 mil, right, per month. And this is because users are coming to our site and finding it easier to perform their DeFi actions, finding it easier to swap, finding it easier to bridge, because all we're doing is aggregating all of the main bridges, all of the main dexes, and putting it into a simple front-end widget for them to explore. And I think if you take a look at the bigger market potential, we see that there's about 10 million monthly users across most ETH L2s. And this really highlights the fact that we need a more composable and a more simplified multi-chain experience. There's too many dApps, and we need to be able to capture this market segment and attention in order to scale from 10 to 100. There's all these users that are probably coming in and finding it very siloed, because you oftentimes go into one chain, learn about those dApps, get integrated into the ethos or the community for that ecosystem, and then forget about everything else. And so this is really a prevalent problem that needs to be solved. There's 10 million users, and we're only serving a very small fraction of them. So our goal is to really try and capture about 3 mil on a monthly active basis, and have about probably 50 to 100K daily active. That's really the end goal here. Can we capture a certain portion of this overall user traffic and flow, and have DapDap be the distribution channel for users to actually access DeFi in an easier way? So let me take you through the app. I think it's really cool. So again, we're the next gen DeFi consumer app. Basically, coming into the homepage here, you're prompted with a variety of different icons for the chains you have integrated. And hovering on any of these chains will show you your asset balance in your wallet, and perhaps some assets staked across different DeFi protocols, right? So you can hover on anyone on this front-end card, or also on the right-hand side, which will prompt you to take 3 different actions. The first one being all-in-one, which is essentially our consolidated DeFi primitive product, where if you're on the Arbitrum ecosystem, these are the 3 things you can do within Arbitrum on DapDap. You can bridge, you can swap, you can lend. On other chains, we have let's say staking, LP, launchpads. Right? This is another example. So eventually you can see that consolidating the DeFi primitives in one place for one chain just makes it easier for you to understand what you can do on that chain. And then on the bridge side, we take you to a bridge ag. So within our super bridge aggregator, we have about 45 bridges integrated. And so if you want to move from chain A to chain B and move token A from token B, we show you all the bridge routes. We also show you the cheapest, the fastest, and if we're running any campaigns with any chains. And so I think this is really important. Just more visibility and more accessibility to certain products that you want to use. No one else is really doing this, and frankly, I don't know why. Two things that we also do here, which I think are really great. One, we have a gas top-up function. So you can imagine if you want to top up $50 to future gas that can be spent, you can add it there so that it's not taking gas spent from your wallet, but rather from this gas top-up function that we have embedded, and a historical function where you can see all the previous transactions that you have done. And then finally, well, for this aspect, is managing assets, which let me show you. Sorry. One more thing, we also have the Super Swap, which is a DEX ag. We have about 45 DEXs aggregated here. Again, if you want to swap tokens on different chains, it just makes it really easy and really simplified for you to see the different routes that you can take. And more importantly, yes, there are other DEX aggregators. Yes, there are other bridge aggregators, but not other DEX aggregators and bridge aggregators offer you other complementary products in one place. And DapDap offers you all of this in one place. And I think what's really cool is like this Ethereum price board where you can see the price of ETH across different chains on the day and at what time you're checking DapDap at. Now going on to clicking, if we were to click on one DeFi primitive here, lending, this is what would pop up where you're able to see all the money market rates for the protocols we have integrated on Arbitrum, and then all of the available supply and borrow interest for you to earn. And then this is what it would look like if you opened up for Radiant to supply or borrow USDT. You're basically able to use Radiant within DapDap because we've developed their own front end on our site, but we're calling Radiant Smart Contract. So it's making it really easy for you to use Radiant or use any other protocol here without having to go to Radiant's website. And this is what your lending positions would look like if you were to supply or borrow and see any rewards available there. Now, at the same time, I think it's really important to show visibility to the different chains. So we have about 17 live, and any user can then go onto the chains tab and be able to click on all the available L2 and L1 networks that are EVM compatible. Clicking in all-in-one will take you back to all-in-one, and then details will expand onto some network stats and the dApps that we have available for that chain. And then same for dApps. You can go and click on any vertical, bridge, DEX, lending, liquidity, and actually explore it. And so our intention here is to continue to integrate more and more apps so that it becomes a very comprehensive DeFi hub for you to explore all of these different chains and all of these different dApps within them. One of my favorite features here is a portfolio feature. And I think it's currently in beta, but I think DBank has a really great product, but it's missing a few things. And within this DeFi function, we have in-wallet where it shows you assets within your wallet and across different chains. This is your DeFi portfolio tab where you can see your total worth, some of the actions you've taken within DapDap, and then the chain distribution at the bottom, and then execution records to see a previous transaction list of all of your executions, right? And I think that's really important where if you have some heavy power users, they're able to kind of reflect on some of the actions they've taken, but just being able to visualize your portfolio within an app that does so much just makes it more comprehensive and more robust, right? And let me give you one final business example that we're working on. Now, we like to look at ourselves as a team that's working on a consumer app, but we're also infra providers. And we're basically working with Polygon to power this ag layer ecosystem. For a lot of you guys that may be aware of this, there are different stack chains, Polygon being one with CDK, OP, Arbitrum stack, right? There are all these different stacks that are building, I would say, almost like sub-chains within this stack, right? So you have multiple Arbitrum stack chains and OP stack chains too, right? And so this interoperability within a certain stack chain needs to be developed because fundamentally, if you want users to use assets or actions within that stack chain, it needs to be better. And so we've worked with Polygon to basically build out a platform that allows users to explore all of the CDK chains in one place. You're able to use Polygon ZK EVM, you're able to use XLayer, Astar, Dogechain, WireX, all of the CDK ag layer chains in one place where you can swap, lend, borrow, bridge, essentially be able to discover all of the apps in one platform without you having to go to, again, 5 different websites and probably multiply by 5 based on the amount of dApps within each chain, all in one platform. So this is something that's really exciting for us. We're working on this currently, and it's going to be launched probably around Q4, called Polygon 1. And in this example, this is actually hosted by Polygon, but it's going to be powered by us since we're the infra providers. But I think it just gives you a different flavor as to like what we can do as infra providers. But most importantly, I think I would just urge everyone to really go and test out DapDap and see if it does simplify your on-chain experience. Because being able to use all of these core functionalities in DeFi primitives in one place ultimately makes your life as a consumer so much easier. I think that's it for me. So, oops, sorry, I'm going back. So yeah, I just want to open up the floor if anyone has any questions here on anything that I've talked about so far. Yeah. If you do, fantastic. If not, come chat to me afterwards.